Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. So, most of us are familiar with the TO Reborn, Palace of the Dead experience. Essentially, you enter into this place, you complete it once manually, and then every time you come through, you just use your guide to get over to whatever drops you want to get to, and then you go just send the AI gremlins in to go clean stuff up, right? So, this is all surprisingly smooth, and in fact, many of the folks that have come into Reborn may have potentially wondered why is it that this place has such a reputation for being a colossal pain in the ass. This is pretty slick as far as endgame dungeons go, as far as MMO-esque Giga Slogs and things like that. Surely this was all just hyperbole. Maybe people were just maybe looking at it a little bit weird or what have you. Maybe something was a bit off. Because all you got to do is, you send in your units, you turn them all to AI, and basically the relics just shower you from everywhere. You got floors in the 20s to 30s that are just going to be giving you basically every crafting book in the game, well, at least most of them anyway. When you go and switch somebody to AI, it's a quick and clean process, and for the most part, they're pretty competent at getting the job done, right? So this is one of those situations where oftentimes there's going to be a bit of a misremembrance over how regular this was, and in fact, even things like how smooth it is to actually go through these fights is largely on account of stuff like having access to these elemental weaknesses, having access to these bars, being able to go take super effective attacks versus people. And the fact that in many cases we're able to boost up damage far higher than it ever could go in previous versions, at least without extreme grind. So what I wanted to do is take a little bit of a journey back to cover the different areas here, to show you how they might have been a little bit different, to see how stuff used to look, why folks had issues with older versions, and just kind of show you why some of the changes changed the way that they changed. Because there may have been more different than you may potentially realize. So I think what we're going to do is we're actually just going to start off with the PS1 version, which is basically the SNES and the Saturn version as well. All of them were more or less the same. And let's go on a little bit of a time travel journey here today. Alrighty, welcome to the PS1 version, or just Tactics Ogre Classic here, wherein we are currently in one of the fights of Palace of the Dead. Now, this might look extremely unfamiliar. What the hell fight is this? Well, you see, the fights in the original were a bit of an oddity. See, they tried to go for kind of like a roguelike kind of situation, wherein effectively, when you went into Palace of the Dead in the originals, it would just give you essentially a random fight. Now, this is actually one of the exceptions. This is not typically one of the maps that you see that often. This is one of the boss encounters, which the boss encounters seemingly can spawn on just about any kind of map, and additionally will essentially just be several fairly overpowered units that are able to just sort of show up with higher stats. Typically, the way that you would address this is that you would just kind of focus fire them down with particular ranged weapons or what have you, and then you would move on to the next fight. See, this entire area was more so difficult not because of the direct fights. Typically, you actually were outnumbering them 10 to 4. But typically, they were actually difficult due to the fact that you were not getting healed between encounters. So oftentimes, it was just basically several repetitive dull slogs in which you sent Hobrim forward, he petrified the entire map, they did absolutely nothing in return, and then suddenly you're hit with a boss encounter where you didn't bring him along for one reason or another, and stuff just went a little bit awry. So anyway, there were a number of different ways that this could potentially play out. Also, I don't know why I'm trying to show off that the crossbow arcs. It only kind of arcs. Actually, yeah, that's another weird thing about this version. Crossbows actually can fire in an arc, to some degree. Like, they can fire beyond range, they can fire over some things, but typically will have more of a straightforward trajectory than a lot of other things. Additionally, you typically didn't want to actually make use of your melee units for meleeing stuff because they took counterattacks. In this case, I'm perfectly fine taking the risk because it might allow us to show off another mechanic. So we'll just go ahead and let him take his swing, see if he blocks it, he does end up blocking it, and we'll go ahead and retreat him out of the fight. But 9 times out of 10, outside of the White Knights, and maybe if you got a really, really good Knight or Dragoon or something, you typically didn't end up using them that much in terms of directly attacking things, because frankly, melee units were just risky in this one. They were just typically way more risky than the other unit types. Usually, even for a melee unit, you were better off, for example, carrying a sword in their offhand, or sorry, carrying a bow in their offhand and then just firing that instead, or just throwing a rock or something along those lines. Additionally, when it came to summons, their damage was kind of all over the place. That sometimes it would be extremely threatening. In other cases, it would just kind of dead drop stuff like that, and it basically does less than a normal attack. But again, it varies. Damage would vary wildly in this version. So you'd have certain cases where somebody is essentially just going and dominating just fine, like right here. With most of our archers and our fusilier over there, typically they're going to be doing just fine. But when it comes to a lot of our other casters, they're going to have a bit of a harder time. Or not our casters, but many of our other units. Melee units in general had a harder time getting into range, but there were no skills in this version, at least not of the normal kind, so they typically didn't have as much of an issue, and the casters, it varied. It varied quite a bit in terms of what they could do, but typically they were fairly consistent. Speed, however, is a little bit weird to judge in this version. Like, we actually had multiple turns come out from the Siren, whereas the Lich did not get that at all. And additionally, a lot of your spells worked very different. Like, for example, instead of a heal 4, you have heal all, which is for whatever reason, no range spell, which means that you can target it wherever the hell you want, to fully heal a unit that for whatever reason costs less than like your just standard heal plus. Yeah, I don't know either. It's just a thing in this version for some reason. But the Palace of the Dead experience primarily just involved surrounding whatever the 4 units were of the day, and then just bombarding the bejesus out of them, and then leaving the last guy crippled but barely alive, in order to then go in and heal up your entire party before moving on to the next one. Typically, you kept your reviver to the back of the fight to just simply respawn anybody that died. In this version, you had instant permadeath if a unit hit 0 health, which, okay, I guess we're not going to see right here. But yeah, if they hit 0 health, they were just dead. Now, you can revive them through Revivify, but the thing was, this wasn't always exactly how it worked. So, for example, if my reviver, in this case Olivia, ends up getting killed, she will potentially revive as an angel. Now, why is this a problem? Because she will then be dead for plot reasons. But she won't actually be dead. Like, she'll still be in the party, she'll be an angel and whatnot, but for all intents and purposes, as far as the story is concerned, she's dead. Same thing can happen to Kashua. Any of your female units, if they die, they will potentially have that problem. So that's potentially a bit of a thing. And additionally, as far as your main character goes, Denim is also a little bit of an odd duck. See, there's a pretty decent chance that you used him as a physical class up to this point, and if he became a lord, there's actually a pretty decent chance that even though he can technically use a lot of the endgame magic, he actually can never use a lot of the endgame magic because he simply does not have the MP to actually cast any of them. So, again, another one of those kind of weird situations. It's probably why in later versions they actually ended up using a bit more universal of stat growths. Because for Classic as well as Knight of Lotus, MP growths are pretty stunted, all things considered. But either way, it's not that you completely couldn't do it. I believe you still could get MP cards in this version, but it still was fairly limited. Alright, in this case we got a pretty safe attack here. If you're wondering, by the way, what the point is of melee units if only a few of them can afford to directly attack, if they've got high enough evasion, they're potentially a good pressure unit, but additionally, if they're in a position to just go potentially throw out a ranged attack and then block an area, they actually can just be a effective body blocker, forcing the AI to go essentially take one of those counterattacks instead of attacking directly, or rather, instead of just getting a free attack. So effectively, they're there to do the counterattack damage. There's no skills, they don't have to train much, so it is what it is. Also, you may notice Mr. Lindell over here, who is now called Rendell, actually is carrying multiple orbs around, and this is actually something that you'd see quite a decent bit when it came to the end game of the original Tactics Ogre, because for whatever reason, it was probably a programming oversight, they actually have negative weight, so carrying an orb makes you faster for reasons. It's just a little balloon that carries them up off the ground and makes them act faster. Now, you might be saying, like, this is, this is all well and neat, but, does this get fast at any point? God, no! This is a big map, and this is one of the harder encounters, sure. These Hydras were here giving us Tempest, which is basically going to be the lightning map-wide Apocrypha spell here. I believe it might be the Lightning Summon. I forget. Either way, it's Tempest. We'll go ahead and shove it on somebody once we get out of this fight. But yeah, no, this is, like, terrifyingly slow. And you know what's funny? Back in the SNES version, you couldn't actually save in the middle of your fights. So the PS1 version had a quality of life feature in which they let you save, and that was all well and good. In the SNES version, however, this probably might hit. Yeah, it definitely will. Oh well. We'll heal him up in a moment. But in the SNES version, the funny part is that you got 100 fights, basically back to back. If you want to get access to stuff like the Fire Crest, you actually got a side quest along the way. But effectively, Palace of the Dead was a sort of roguelike that you just played within Tactics Ogre. You came in, and as soon as you were tired or just kind of done for the day or what have you, you would simply leave. That you weren't really meant to sit there and clear it in one sit, one sit through. You had randomized fights that you would go through, and every now and then a floor would give you something like a Roderick encounter. And Roderick, instead of being a boss in this one, was actually a helpful dude. He's the guy that gave you your finisher moves. You didn't have access to your finisher moves until you got to Palace of the Dead. And these finisher moves were usually a self-damaging, essentially just like a body slam kind of situation, where you were usually sacrificing health for some kind of other effect. Some of these were more interesting than others. Let's see, how much would we do to you? You would do 70, so this would be an instant game over if I use that anywhere near him. She can take that a little bit better, but maybe not so much. I think we're just going to teleport somebody. Let's go ahead and just teleport him. You know what, let's just go ahead and teleport him all the way over here. Why not? Yeah, teleport was basically unlimited range. So, just whoop, and you're all the way over there now. This sounds a lot more useful than it is. You typically don't use this for stuff other than, like, it would be cool to get over there type of reasons, but still, it's neat all the same, you know? Okay, so, let's see, do any of these guys hurt? Does anybody need healing? Does anybody need a doctor? We got a doctor somewhat in the house over here. You don't, you kinda sorta do. Alright, let's just go ahead and move her over that direction. Can't move that place because vertical movement is pretty iffy in this version. So, one of those things you'll notice about the PSP, or not the PSP, but with the classic version, is that movement in general is very, very limited. So units don't necessarily move very far. Movement up and down is fairly stunted, as it were. Like having flyers in your team, a lot of folks just like to immediately switch over to a team of Hawkmen at the start of the game, just because they would have the advantage of not having to worry about elevation. And Hawkmen aren't really necessarily that much more limited than anybody else. Any class can use any weapon in this version, so I mean at that point you kind of might as well, you know. Now, this mechanic that they make use of in Palace of the Dead, this is pretty cool from a just kind of a from the perspective of a mechanic that they don't really use that often, because this is one of the few cases where the kind of siege mode mechanic actually makes sense, where potentially you have somebody that's damaged enough that you want to bench them, but at the same time, any of your healers can just kind of permanently heal, so it immediately throws the whole logistics aspect of it out the window. So, for example, fight's over, we now get the option of going to the next one. So you can save in the middle of fights, but not after that. Also, you might notice some of these body counts get pretty hilarious. Anyway, let's see. What exactly was that spell? Alright, if I could just get the right menu combination, that'd be fantastic. What's funny is that all of these all of the versions of Classic use a completely different control scheme. So, like, I was just trying to use the Saturn one, which basically uses the triggers for different things. However, Knight of Lotus doesn't allow you to switch back and forth with the triggers, instead being the menu stuff. So that was the other menu thing I was trying to do there. So yeah, it's a little weird sometimes as far as that goes. Now, where's this Tempest? Okay, so what does Tempest tell us? Dragon magic, summon a storm and call down lightning bolts, gives all enemies damage. So it specifically says all enemies. Same thing for Wipeout, or what do we got for Entify? Gives away the user's soul and calls back a dead soul instead. So basically, revive but worse. And this is kind of what you went down to Palace of the Dead for, that your dragon magic gave you all kinds of weird stuff like this. So if we go over, you may notice that they can't actually use this stuff, but our Warlock Warlock and Princess can. Now, another funny thing is that Star Ion, aka Heaven Judge, is effectively going to be a holy nuke that hits the entire thing here. Also, despite the fact that it says it gives damage, I believe this is the only one that actually only hits enemies, as well as exercises them on kill, rather than everything else, which actually damages your own units at the same time. So, a little bit of an odd duck as far as that goes. Also, another funny note, if you switch somebody like Lyndall here into a gunner, they can never be anything else again. Switching over to a Fusilier is a permanent change in this version. So let's go ahead and see if we can find us a... the main reason that you'd actually use a Warlock in this version is for these spells, by the way. Yeah, let's go ahead and replace this with Tempest. And he's got Healing Rain and Entify to be able to go bring somebody back from the dead. But they were the edgy edgelords that did this kinds of stuff. And if you're wondering what's with the 2 stabs on every caster, you actually got double the casting bonus for using 2 staves. And additionally, in some cases, you actually got other benefits as well. Like in some sections of the game, it's actually worth carrying 2 short bows on you to effectively improve the damage of one of your short bows. But anyway, it is what it is. They're just if you've ever been curious why there are so many misunderstandings about this game, it's because every single version has something different going on like this. This is just a never-ending cycle with this game. Anyway. Also, another funny note, that you were actually locked out of certain classes in this version if you weren't on the right path here. So we went Chaotic, meaning that he has access to the Terranite, but he never, for example, can be a Dragoon or a Swordmaster here. So, basically, Swordmaster is Law, Dragoon is Neutral, and the Terranite is Chaos. So yeah, that's kind of neat there. Any darn ways. Also, actually, one of the other requirements for Terranite was 25 kills in this version. You couldn't become one without that 25 kill count. This is why there's a kill counter on these people here. And actually, if you ever wondered why in War of the Lions there's a 25 kill requirement for the Fell Knight, that's why. It's supposed to be a reference to that, as far as I can tell. Anyway, so everyone's a bit injured here, but we'll go ahead and move on to the next fight. So we carry on, and it's not going to tell us what we're actually fighting until we get there. So, as usual, we start off with a couple of archers here. Typically, you want a couple archers, a couple casters. Normally, Hobram is basically non-negotiable. I was just kind of playing around with different units here. So, you usually want to have 1 reviver. You want to have one Hobram here to instantly win the fight for you. And then just kind of the rest can be whoever you'd like. Now, interestingly enough, beasts can actually use healing items in this version. So this gives them a bit of a unique utility in Palace of the Dead, as they might be able to outspeed the rest of the map and get those healing items over to somebody that wasn't healed yet in this version. So basically, if you're wondering why in Reborn they got that ability back, that's why. It was one of their cool unique functions in the SNES one that just kind of got lost to time, as it were. So, we get some victory conditions, just kill all units, and 90% of the time, this is what you're seeing. Almost every time, what you're running into is just simply, you are in the shopkeeper room, and then there's 5 enemies that pop up of some variety. So we've got a Cockatrice, we've got a Basilisk, we've got an Earth Dragon, we got another Basilisk, and then we got this guy. And essentially we just go up, and we fight him. So, In this case, let's go ahead and you're going to go ahead and wait. You're going to go ahead and wait. Um, all we really want is to wait a little bit of time until Hobrim is ready to attack. So we just simply wait. You're going to go ahead and he's going to actually go forward due to being a little bit more healthy in his case. Potentially just give them something else to focus on, as well as getting an idea for how tough these guys are. So it looks like they're going to be a fairly standard bunch. So let's see. Hobrim is he good enough to go for Petrify yet? No, he needs 32. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and wait with him, and we're just going to go probably send forward the chicken to go over in this direction. They don't have a rock throw in this version yet, so the beast units are limited to their special attacks for just petrification, in which in this particular case, the special moves that something like the cockatrice gets are just basically free, so they can just immediately go in and use them, but they take a bit of a health cost. I believe that in the chicken's case, they actually don't take a health cost at all, that they just can do it for free, but something like the wind shot off the griffin does have a health cost. Anyway, so we got our acid here. We're just going to go ahead and wait with him. They're going to get close, and we've got the basilisks with evil eyes. I forgot about this, but this essentially is just going to go around petrifying anybody that can see it. But however, there is a decent chance that they're able to guard it in this case. In later versions, this was far more guaranteed. In this case, everyone's at least somewhat leveled up, so they just managed to dodge it, so that's all well and good. Now, the basilisk is basically what the Hydra became later. Give or take in terms of how potentially scary they can be. Anyway, back to the previous thing of heal all just kind of being bizarrely free by comparison. So there we go, 45 MP, instantly all your health back from in absolutely unlimited range, don't question it. So effectively you can have a heal sniper, like if you have a Revivify and heal all user that you just hide in the corner of the map, you can never lose. Unless you send out Denim, which I did here for reasons that are a bit unclear. But we'll hopefully address that as time comes. Additionally, you might have noticed I mentioned earlier that we're actually able to make use of what the hell was it? Petrify on our Swordmasters. So Swordmasters in this version got access to a lot of support abilities. And additionally, due to some of them scaling off stats you wouldn't expect, oftentimes they became impressively good at using them. Also, we're going to be able to show the revive mechanic in just a moment. There goes Berta, who is poisoned on top of being dead. That makes them double dead. Damn, nobody is helping me, they say. You know, you're a mere tool, correct? You were absolutely a tool, and now you're going to get brought back to life so that you can do your job again. You think that's going to get you out of work today? Yeah, I don't think so. Anyway, so we're going to show the revive mechanic in a moment here, but one of the things that we can make use of is petrification, because petrification is infinite in this version. It never wears off, meaning that a petrification unit is potentially one of the scariest things you can possibly get, especially a Swordmaster, and Hobrim comes with Petrify. He is like far and beyond. Basically, like you thought Swordmaster Sid was, or Thunder God Sid was overpowered. You ain't seen frickin' nothing compared to Hobrim. Like the dude literally just as long as they have a little bit of startup time to get their MP back, they basically just win fights instantly. Like it's not even a, oh wow, they did so much damage that they got through their health bar. No, I mean like they literally will just go up to boss fights and just instantly delete them. In this case, I didn't have him set up and ready to go. You can actually just have them all charged up and whatnot to go get this done. So instead, we're just going to use a few of our other abilities here. Just go hit these guys a little bit. Yeah, I'm hitting my own chicken. It'll be fine. Like, this miserable situation is the Palace of the Dead experience, as it originally was. The main difference between the SNES version and the other versions was that in SNES you could not save, so you had to get through all 100 floors, and then hopefully, hopefully by the end of it, you still had enough of your sanity left to at least enjoy getting a Fire Crest and then getting access to your Reputation meter. This was useful in SNES and PS1, however, Reputation Meter was just kind of available right from the get-go in the Saturn version, so that's interesting. Anyway, And yeah, in the other versions though, you could save in the middle of fights, so you at least had some recourse there. So that was also pretty handy. And again, normally you wouldn't be using melee units at this point. As you can see, even this guy, who previously was pretty good at dodging, is still going to be taking counterattacks. It's basically unnecessary damage. So a bit of a bummer there that the melee units kind of got a little bit relegated to the defensive role here. But you ain't seen nothing yet. Somehow they get shafted even worse in the PSP version. Anyway, we'll get to that in a moment. Oh, actually, one more little detail that we haven't covered yet is the bows. So all of these different bows, you can't actually get any of these bows at any time. You literally can just walk in and get a Jiggler bow, which doesn't even need the full set effect. It just instantly has the chance to go petrify somebody. So you got Petrification on hit, you got Charm on hit from the Crescent, you got Stun on hit from one of the other ones there. So that's all well and neat. Now, here we go. So now we have the standard Hobrim experience. If you're wondering why he was spelled this way in Reborn, well, there you go. So we had one that it missed. They might be immune, I think. So we'll just go ahead and kill off the Basilisks then. And there we go. They're just turned to stone. Those two will never do anything again. They will very rarely carry any items to actually cure that. That's actually why I checked them beforehand. That even if they have a cure, they're wasting their turn on it, and you can usually just attack a second time. And if not, you can just kind of do this, and they're just going to go ahead and Evil Eyes again. They love to use this little circly effect in Classic. They don't really use it much in later ones, which is a bit of a bummer. It's kind of a neat effect, I guess. Unfortunately, our Reviver got turned to stone, so that's a bit of an unfortunate thing, because I don't actually know if I have a means to solve that. Let's see, I don't have anything there. Oh, you actually still had use effect on this one? Good luck figuring out what the hell they are, though. They never tell you what items have a use effect. So, yeah, she won't have anything that can help here. Let's see. What about you? You got anything? They've got an Exorcism Staff, which actually I don't believe... Let's see. Does that actually have any additional use in this one? Can recover user from abnormal status. Actually, yeah, there we go. That'll work. So this wasn't the Exorcism Staff. This was just the Curing Staff in this one. Again, any wonder as to how this stuff constantly got confused. Now, this, come to think of it, this is actually one of the few times it does mention it, where it cures somebody from abnormal status. In terms of the, like, for example, the Dark Robe giving you double MP regeneration, or let's see, actually, no, we need one more for Revivify. Yeah, that got its cost doubled later on. Anyway, in terms of... I forgot what the hell I was going to say. In terms of something or other, probably. Okay. Anyway, let's go ahead and revive this guy. I want to see if we can get a Roderick encounter, because I want to see more of this. I had another save file that actually had more of these different encounters saved up, but unfortunately, that was a couple of device switches ago, so that one ended up being lost to time. And, oh, it was the revive mechanic I was trying to show, right. So we'll get to that in a moment. Now, poison wasn't too scary in this one. But yeah, in terms of the use item effects, like you have the Earth Ring that you can just randomly find on the ground somewhere. Basically gives you an almost geomancy type effect called X-Zone. That, I mean, it exists. It's not really going to be anything terribly mind-blowing. It's certainly a move that you can do. It doesn't really tell you that you can use it, but you can, and then you do. And that's really kind of about it. I know, I would have expected more too. So that's all well and neat. Let's see. I'll just go ahead and attempt to petrify this guy, even though he's going to be very resistant to it, unfortunately. It is what it is. Oh, he can actually get petrified. Good to know. I thought they were potentially immune. Oh well. Go ahead and finish, or at least attempt to finish him off. So yeah, no real sense in having him do anything then. Do we have any additional effects off of the Brimstone, which is just the fire bow in this one? There we go, poppity pop. Just a little bit of decent damage. A lot of weapons in the end game for this one, and a lot of the reason that you'd actually go into Palace of the Dead. are going to be units that are not units, but are typically going to be abilities that are slightly better than the stuff you can get kind of up above ground. Mostly, you're just kind of doing this to do it. There really isn't anything terribly mind-blowing as far as items go. Like, I'd say the Dark Robe is probably one of the better ones because of double MP regeneration. You have a lot of the longbows here that are just going to give you, like right here, a stun effect, for example, from the Starbow, or the Crescent, as it were. Additionally, you actually had double sword attacks off of Swordmasters, which is fine. It's okay. It is exactly fine. So, yeah, again, not anything too crazy mind-blowing. It's cool that you can do it. Like, you got ninjas that are able to basically go and double attack with pretty much everything, so you can do, like, double attack axes right from the early parts of the game, but it's not really anything that's going to be too insane, you know? Okay. Actually, there is one more kind of interesting little note while we're here, that we can actually go and change how all of this stuff looks. That as far as your navigation displays and or not navigation displays, which one was it? There were some kind of... Oh, here it is. There we go. Where is it? No, we don't want that. We want icon or command displays. You actually got 3 different versions of these. So if you weren't, let's say, a fan of how they were originally, you can have them switch over to a list view or switch over to a up and down view. I don't know why I didn't save it. Here, let's see. Go ahead and save it as type B. Did it actually save it? Or maybe this was already type B? I don't know. You can't change this, though. Type C. There we go. And now it's like an awkward drop-down menu. Funnily enough, Type C looks the closest to the PSP version. So that's just kind of what they ended up doing at that point. Here, let's go ahead and use Gnome as you do. There we go. Just a bunch of rocks shooting out. It does. The animations do look really decently cool in this one, and the amount of projectiles you get are actually based off of your intelligence. So this was actually the way that the game typically handled this stuff up until Reborn. So in Reborn, it just became a kind of random set of projectiles that seemed to prefer a certain number of them, depending on how much intelligence you had, maybe. But it seemed to mostly be somewhat random. In the original, it was you got a certain amount of projectiles based off a certain amount of your intelligence. So this probably was the most noticeable in Night of Lotus, but it was available for Classic as well. Now, needless to say, there were very few people that ever actually ended up doing this. In fact, there's probably a pretty reasonable reason as to why it took so dang long for anyone to find the helmet, or to get the helmet that they were offering back in the day. So for those that didn't know, they had a helmet that was available as a prize if somebody managed to find the Fire Crest in this version. Somebody did eventually manage to find it. I believe technically after the thing was over, but they gave it to them all the same, because what the hell else were they going to do with it? But effectively, the way that you gotta get it is similar to the later versions, wherein if you want to get the Fire Crest, you have to get the 4 Wind God weapons and then get to the end of Palace of the Dead. Now, strangely enough, this was actually somewhat feasible in this version. You actually could reasonably get there on accident. It just took you a really, really, really long time. So, like, Palace of the Dead, I would say in this version, despite the fact that there's far fewer units on the maps than you may potentially expect, this is still like a 20-something hour experience. It takes a really long time. So I'd say you could easily double the length of your actual playthrough by going through Palace of the Dead. It's definitely always been a bit of a long one, but in this one in particular, dude, it gets rough as far as how long it takes. Like, this is one of those things that if you're playing it on like a PSP or Vita that's modded, you typically are going to be spending like a week or more if you want to actually clear it. And more often than not, it's going to suck almost all the way through. You do get to skip some floors, like you are going directly from 1 to 100. You don't technically get shortcuts like you do in PSP and Reborn, but you do get your Roderick floors. So we'll just go ahead and continue on to the next one, see what we end up getting. Would you like to end edit mode? Yes, because I want to go back to the other mode, please. I'll just go ahead and start it with whatever's here. So we didn't get a Roderick floor, unfortunately. At least I don't think we did, because it didn't immediately go to a cutscene, and we'll see what we get. What do we got? Is it Shopkeeper floor again? Because it's almost always Shopkeeper floor. And we get another one of these. Like, yeah, it's the same 4 to 6, but, like... it's such a freaking slog, dude. We got Spider over here. Hey, check it out. We didn't have to wait till FFT. Vale, we actually found Spider in Tactics Ogre. We got Proteus, got Solovi. This is your, like, generic adventurer party down here. Typically, these are the ones that you just wipe with AoEs and move on to the next map. Yeah, it's a dull time. Alright, anyway. You get the idea. I was hoping we'd run into a Roderick encounter, but, like, this is mind-numbing in terms of its slowness. Actually, one more little note. Not really the most important by any means, but you might have noticed we actually can fire ranged weapons at point-blank range. This is one of those reasons that there's never a reason to open up with a melee attack, because just ranged attacks don't get counterattacked, and you can use them at melee range, and oftentimes they're stronger. So, yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so, I know that we're not in Palace of the Dead right now. We're doing a quick little run-through of Farampa here real quick, because I wanted to talk about this save file in particular. So this is one that I was really, really happy to actually find again. I got a lot of kind of scattershot save files from all kinds of runs all over the dang place. But this is one from several years ago. I want to say like 5, 6, maybe 7 years ago. But I feel like this is a pretty solid kind of opener as far as... hopefully understanding some of the situation that came with the PSP version. Because this version is the one that probably gets misunderstood the most of the bunch. Typically, there's a lot of folks all over the Steam reviews that will constantly misremember just how stuff worked, how stuff was, you know, what the deal was with a lot of these things, and hell, in most cases, it's just like remembered with the biggest rose-tinted goggles you've ever seen. And the thing is, this was the case even before Reborn. And I'm not saying that this is bad by any means. I freaking love this game. But there's a lot of asterisks to the stuff that made it good. And because it was very, 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 very intensely going down that rabbit hole of trying to be a simulation in all things. So things got real specific real quick. Like, for example, you can throw items. And, like, the lobber is just a thing in Reborn, right? It's just an item that... it's just a skill a couple of classes get, and they can throw items now. They get Lobber 1, they get Lobber 2. And this one, it's an item. Now, you've got some folks that are going to be coming in with hot takes like, oh, yeah, you know, you could throw with the Lobber whenever you wanted, and you got it right from the get-go, and anybody could use it, and it was so good, and, like, everybody got access to it all the time, and... you know what? Slow down your roll there, Sparky, because that is 100% not how it ended up working. So, like, for example, with this guy, right? I got him with the Lobber 1. The number of asterisks going down this particular thing are hilarious. Did every character get access to this? No, funnily enough. I don't even know, did I ever get Fusiliers? I did get Fusiliers on this one. Fusiliers actually didn't get Lobber in this one. But this is the Lobber 1, or rather the Lobber plus 1. Basic Lobber was completely different, and you actually could not throw all items with the Lobber. It was a combination of field alchemy as well as the quality of the Lobber that you ended up using that determined what items you could throw and how far, which sounds cool until you realize how annoying that could potentially get to figure out for each particular item. Which then leads us to another little funny detail. That you actually can't get access to anything but the basic Lobber for a huge chunk of the game, because you don't get access to the advanced versions of the Lobber until you go into Palace of the Dead. So that's a bit of a problem. And additionally, those are further gated behind a bunch of rare materials, and a unit that doesn't want to spawn in a spawn that potentially might have your loot immediately stolen multiple attempts before you actually end up getting it. Like the classic Tactics Ogre PSP experience basically involved like, oh, cool, I'm gonna go, gonna go get this item, and then finally you end up going and getting the item to show up, only to then immediately see the AI, say, fly up and just take it right after you went and reset the turn 45 times in order to get it. This was a very regular experience, and this is like from top to bottom. That's what this game was like. That every mechanic didn't work like you'd think it would potentially work. Like you'd think, okay, booby traps. This is going to be one of those cases where you put down a trap, and maybe somebody will walk over that tile and they'll explode. Kind of. Except you have a different type of trap for every type of card in the game. And additionally, these don't actually scale with your augments. They all have a certain element assigned to them. They are resisted by elemental armors, and they will do a specific type of damage, but the only way to scale up the damage on your traps is actually going to be courtesy of the prevailing element mechanic, which is what's here. Let's see if we got anything that's currently active. Currently, there is no prevailing element, but that's this thing right here. Basically, when an element is used enough times, it ends up becoming a little bit stronger. This is something that you see active pretty much all the time in Reborn. In this case, it's going to take a decent bit longer for any spell to be used enough times to potentially come up. So that is a bit annoying, right? Now, on top of this, you also have the fact that it took TP to actually use those, and due to being a TP skill, this also meant that they had a speed cost associated with them. So you are essentially delaying your next turn, as well as using a limited resource on top of another limited resource to then essentially booby trap one tile that will also hit yourself if somebody ever actually steps on it. And the amount of damage that you're getting is oftentimes basically negligible, though some of the debuffs could potentially be useful. Though again, bear in mind that unless you have another unit shield bashing you out of the way, you're also going to be getting hit by that same debuff if a unit were to land on that tile. If you ever wondered why for the One Vision mod they changed it so the tiles only affect one tile instead of explode in an AoE, that would be why. Additionally, the AI will almost never actually land on those, and if you ever wondered what the disarm trap is for, or the disarm skill is for, it's actually for the purpose of just collecting your cards back, because more often than not, your traps will just go completely unused. So, it was one of these things that's like, it's cool that it's here, but oh my god, it does nothing, huh? So, yeah, from top to bottom, that was a lot of the simulation aspects of this game here. So, for example, let's go ahead and step on this tile just to show you what it does, because the AI probably never will. So let's go ahead and do that. So they step on it, and they explode. Now, in this particular case, that particular one decided to explode not in an AoE. Awesome. So we don't even know exactly which ones explode in an area and which ones don't. This one causes flames to go forward. This one will crystallize an area. And what will it do? Well, let's see. Dealing slashing damage. Also, I love that it tells us slashing damage, but it doesn't tell us the range. And we can go through this for every single one of these. You know how you actually tell which one of these does what? The very final page of the official guide will tell you what element they use, as well as what their deal is, as far as whether they're an AoE, whether they're a short-range thing, or what. So, that's cool. That's great. That's just all well and fun. Anyway, the rogue here is also one of those units that I mean, I'm gonna mention the rogue a lot because like I still see comments to this day of people insisting the rogue was how you stole stole equipment, which if you want to get hyper technical, there's a couple of instances where you could steal specific pieces of equipment from specific people if you had it beyond a specific rank. And you could, though, there's only one specific item that you couldn't get any other way, and that was the Reaver Ring, which simply made you steal better. So, that's fun. Also, if you're wondering why I'm using Threaten here to both slow down this unit and also do absolutely nothing, it's because she's actually training. See, a lot of these skills, like you noticed earlier, Lament of the Dead, only have 35% odds to hit. A lot of them do this crazy thing where they gotta be ranked up by being used potentially hundreds of times in order to actually be useful to any extent whatsoever. Like the base odds for something like this, what was it here, Threaten to actually land would be something to the tune of about 30%. She has gone ahead and used this skill about somewhere between like 8 to 10 times so far, and it's ranked up 3.9% of the way. Cool. Do we see why this is potentially a system that got turned into an automatic with a set amount yet? Because yeah, those got to be quite something. Though I will say, the steel bow definitely made a better case for itself in this version, being one of the better crossbows. But yeah, it definitely did not look nearly as pretty in later versions. This guy's just going to go ahead and take two actions in a row. You're going to go ahead and go this way. She does not have her magic yet because she has not spent the points to actually unlock it yet, because the previous Terror Knight died and their abilities were transferred over to this one. See, it wasn't that you couldn't actually get units with all of their abilities ready to go in this version, it's just the fact that it sucked. So the whole your units being able to use their skills right away just to replace somebody that died, oh my god, they're turning it so casual stuff that you see in the not in the comments, but in the Steam reviews and such. Yet another reason why that's a load of crap is because you could do that in this version. If a unit died, you just transferred their skills over to somebody else, right? So in that particular instance, they would get all of those skills, they would just have to rank them up again, and they would have to buy their skill slots again. So you got a shittier version of the same thing for a slight discount, and they still got those skills, but it just took you way longer to get them back up. Also, for the sake of reference here, they are getting 0.5 per every time that they are using this skill. Again, that is 40 TP, which is potentially up to 2 rounds worth of actions, and additionally they're slowing their next action down in order to do it. Now the funny part is, and why those generally tended to get unused, but people remember them being used all the time, was actually courtesy of the AI. See, the AI can just come in with whatever the hell people want them to. So when you run into something like Pirate's Graveyard, which I'll cover in a separate video, you actually ran into this crazy thing where they happily had those ranked up to like rank 3, 4, 5, what have you, but you sure didn't. Oh man, sucks to not have cheats, huh? So, if you ever heard somebody say that you had to play the original version with cheats, that's basically why. You still were at a disadvantage in this one, it was just always in the most annoying manner possible. So, whether it was stuff like the AI having access to ranks that you don't have for skills that you don't want to use, or them potentially having access to gear at an earlier point that's physically impossible, or access to spells that are literally impossible for anyone in the world to have yet. Like, for example, if you end up getting yourself into New Game Plus mode, if you get your levels past, I believe, 36 or so for your different classes, I didn't even mention the classes level in this one, not individual units, you had these really cool cases where the AI came in with Apocrypha. So, yeah, you thought the summon spam was bad in Reborn. Apocrypha spam was a little bit of a step above that. And additionally, you might notice the AI really, really loves to use their debuffs. See, part of the reason that I've been saying for a decently long time that the AI in Reborn doesn't use those debuffs is because this shit was annoying. Because you'd get into a fight, everything would be going great, and you just want to get on to the next map here, and suddenly everyone's dying because nobody can actually move. Because suddenly there was a AI that got a string of really good rolls, or had one particularly good spellcaster, and now the entire party's asleep. Now, in this case, this is a somewhat manageable, if irritating, kind of setup that's going on here. Actually, this is why a lot of endgame builds ended up turning into just how many immunities can I stack on everybody, because this is annoying. Bear in mind, again, the AI will typically come in with just kind of cheats for certain things, so they are always where they need to be. So in this case, she will always come in with Spell Strike. The AI knows to use Spell Strike, the player may well not know how to do that, but additionally this combination of Channeling and Spell Strike means that they will basically spam this non-stop. So they will just shut down your entire party, and you're just kind of hoping that you have enough time to pull it together. In fact, they kind of did the same thing as they did in this one, to a degree that's going to be difficult to explain for a second, double correcting on the debuff thing by also giving you instant turns when you're revived in that version. In this case, I just happened to see that his turn was next on the turn order, but when a unit's knocked out, they are essentially knocked to the highest of their possible recovery time, and then they're simply going to wait for their next turn to come up. Now, most times what this means is that a Blessing Stone is going to revive their death counter, but more often than not, you're actually taking a risk bringing somebody back on their feet, seeing as they won't get an immediate turn, and it'll take them a decently long time to actually take that next action, and more often than not, they will just end up getting shot in the meantime, and it gives them nothing. So those situations are a bit disheartening, and it's one of those things that led to a sort of kind of cascade death in a lot of situations, where you'd get to, like an hour into a particular fight, only to suddenly see your entire team start dropping like flies absolutely everywhere because you tried to save one unit from bleeding out, which led to 2 units getting now taken out, to then leading to 3 units getting taken out. And while it is a somewhat realistic scenario as to why nobody runs out to go save the guy that just got knocked out, this is still just something that's really annoying from a gameplay perspective, because, again, you had already won, and now everything's going, completely pear-shaped. So, bit of a frustration on that end. Now, I know that this is a whole lot to get into before we even get into Palace of the Dead here. Also, this is why having trajectory lines was really useful in later versions, but I'm just kind of showing that off for dramatic purposes at this point. Because you had so much stuff that could actually block your shots in this one. They actually made it, I believe, like an elevation of 1 difference, possibly, in terms of forgiveness for your shots, because that crossbow shot, I think, is directly possible in Reborn, but could be wrong on that. Anyway, so the reason that I'm actually bringing all of this up is because all of it is going to come together in one beautiful package in Palace of the Dead. See, Palace of the Dead in PSP, while it did improve on the whole, please stop being random, this is getting a little bit irritating situation of the SNES and other classic versions experience, oh boy, is it still one hell of a miserable hellhole in this version. Originally, this actually ended up coming up from a discussion that I was having with Vale there, over whether or not you can actually use AI units in the PSP version, which, yeah, you can, it just sucks. It's got a lot of weirdly specific limitations. So, this is going to be a file that has already cleared Palace of the Dead before. At least I believe it is. Let me go ahead and verify that real quick. Go over to our inventory, go look for our books, as it were. Do we has the books? Actually, it should be under consumables. Do we have the books? Do we have the palace guides? Oh, please tell me we have the palace guides. Oh, good lord, we don't, do we? Awesome. Do we not have Secrets of the Master? Okay, this was actually possibly before then. Ah, shoot. Okay, well, I've got another version of the save file somewhere. But a few things. For one thing, even though you do get experience in Palace of the Dead, it's actually a very similar experience in terms of the levels. You're actually coming in typically at a lower level here. But additionally, the levels just mean entirely different things, so that doesn't say anything. But the levels matter a lot more in this version for a few things. For one thing, the drops that are available to you are determined based entirely off of your level. So every level just kind of moves up the brackets, as it were, in terms of what's available to you at any given time. So here, let's go ahead and swap out for... Do I have any clerics in this party, actually? I don't actually know that I do. Well, we'll go ahead and swap out for Shaman Yuria over here. So essentially, the levels will determine who's got access to what. So, like, let's say when it comes to your equipment, you can see over there he has a level requirement of 26 for the spear, meaning that this is something that the AI can spawn with, right? So, effectively, this means that the AI is going to have specific rules for what it can spawn with. Now, what this translates to is that there's certain things you can cheese and certain things that you kind of sort of can't. Like if you wanted to have access to the Ixcamilli's bow, instead of the Reborn... so this actually had a few different versions. The original version would have basically just been the Gigolo bow in the SNES version, right? You just got that encounter, you killed the unit that had it, you got the bow now. The Reborn version is that you acquire a crescent as well as the crafting book, and then you go ahead and craft the Ixcamilli's, and it's your one-handed counterbow. In this version, it is the most fucked ranged weapon in the series, because not only are you getting massive bonuses off this thing, its damage alone is basically endgame worthy or postgame worthy, its level requirement is basically halfway to the maximum, and additionally, if you have anybody with tremendous shot there, it will have a guaranteed shackle on hit. So it just disables a unit entirely on hit, makes the unit immune to stone, and additionally will give them additional augment, which will mean that it will make their actual shots stronger as long as they're using that augment. I don't know why I don't have that augment on this guy right now. I think this was before I knew that this was even a mechanic, so we'll just go ahead and slap that on him real quick. But just for the sake of, here, we'll go ahead and replace double shot, because he actually won't need it in this context here. But I want to just show, like, he's at rank 1 augments. He's got his anatomy to improve his performance as well as armor versus humans, and then he's got maxed out bow ranks. For the sake of comparison, we've got our leader guy that has been used the entire game and post-game. He currently is at rank 5, +2 from his equipment. And additionally, we've got our second-in-command Valkyrie here, who's only at rank 3. We've got our other bow user, who's at rank 6. We've got our 2 dagger users over here. This is one of the reasons that I loved what I called this file the Philippe file, because I had these two practicing with daggers on every single fight. Every time that they weren't casting at something, they were swinging daggers at each other so that I could see what the useful effect was of having daggers on these people. Anyway, that's all there is to say on that. Let's go ahead and move on. Our frontline knights here with their swords and hammers are only at rank 4. My primary warrior guy with the Lombardia is at a 3+1, but you get the general idea. The ranged units, they're basically maxed out. Well, this guy is basically new, but anyway. The ranged units are basically maxed out. Everybody else, though, is lagging behind tremendously. So this is one of those cases where... Actually, you know, let's go ahead and replace this guy with this guy so that you can see the difference. And additionally, let's go ahead and replace this Terror Knight with Ozma. So this is actually one of those cases where Ozma was an absolute terror in the PSP version. So in her case, she actually came in with Augment Ice. She was one of those few cases of a unit that was accidentally optimized for something completely different than what they actually came in with. And I mentioned this specifically because she's really useful for Palace of the Dead. But in this case, I had a convenient dead ninja that I went ahead and fed to her on a silver platter, because that's just how you transferred skills in this version. You could switch somebody to different classes, but getting a new Knight Commander mark was a nightmare, so it was just a lot easier to go literally train somebody to use that skill, kill them, and then have them eaten by another character. It's fine, it's just a thing we do here. Anyway, she came in with Augment Ice. She can be transferred over double attack, and additionally came with a pretty decently high rank of swords. And so this was, again, another one of the problems with this version, that you could, any multi-hitter, as well as any ranged unit, typically got way more attacks off than anybody else, which meant higher ranks, which meant that Snowball went even harder. So in her case, dual Ice Blade Ozma was horrifically strong. Granted, she still did die regularly because no shield, but, like... Still, in her case, it was a pretty scary combo, but on top of all of this... where the hell is it? On top of all of this, when it came to Cherry Ronde, this was one of the few cases where finishers mattered in this version. Or at least finisher elements. See, what it doesn't tell you is that while these finishers have an element, there are no weaknesses in this version. One of the reasons that there are weaknesses in Reborn is to make use of a lot of these existing mechanics. So you use ice on an air unit, for example. But that doesn't matter here. There are no real interactions except for augments and attenuations. So, like, when you got a unit, like, they had a racial skill, that just meant that you had additional attack power versus that unit and additional armor versus them. This is why something like Anatomy was so overpowered, because you could just stack this to have free armor versus everything, because all it's checking is, hey, who's involved in this fight? Oh, you're a person! Free armor for you! So, yeah, you know, it was very friendly in that particular regard. You had access to resists for every element, or every debuff. These sucked before you start getting excited. These were just absolute doo-doo tier. Nobody ever touched this. In the case of somebody like Ozma here, she came in with resist stun. Realistically, the only reason you'd ever use a resist, even in a multiplayer scenario, was to actually just cause them to not get targeted by that debuff, because the AI can see that they're resisting it and will be less likely to target them, because the AI has a huge preference towards accuracy in this version. So this is a way to kind of de-aggro towards that particular debuff, whereas putting the actual immunity for that skill it caused you to get targeted by it all the time, and it just would glance off. So, anyway. So, what I was trying to get at here is attenuates. So this basically caused your augments to work in reverse, giving you a massive resistance towards that particular element, and this was very rarely useful. But there were some oddly specific cases where it really mattered. So like the Jigglyset was more or less a bazooka in this version, that you gave somebody the Jigglyset, they were just an instant friggin' killer from long range. However, something like Attenuate Dark could go and revert that damage back to double digits. Again, it was a very swingy sort of experience. So what we're going to do is show you the kind of AI experience as to why this stuff typically wasn't used that much in this version. Do I seriously not have any clerics on this team? Hold on. Surely I have some clerics on this team. Somewhere, right? Like, did I just seriously never use a single one in this playthrough? I mean, it's possible, maybe. Yeah, no, I guess I just specifically didn't use clerics for some reason. Weird. I mean, typically clerics got laughed at in this version, but they were very useful. Also, Cash was just kind of casually dead over here, as is my team Fairy, as well as Olivia. They just sort of got taken out randomly. Oh yeah, right, Cashua was the cleric. That's why. Well, that's unfortunate. What the hell did we do with that? Well, I guess we're just gonna run with that one. Let's go ahead and replace this guy with a knight. Sure. Okay. So, we're gonna go ahead and swap these guys like this. They're all ready to go. They're ready to go do their thing, right? So, this is Palace of the Dead level 1. Surely they can go ahead and manage this. I mean, we don't have any undead units, so we don't have to worry about exorcism, okay? So, let's go ahead and set them to AI and let the friggin' quirks commence. So first and foremost, we're actually setting most of them over to a Vanguard AI. The reason for this is because the AI will actually tether towards the middle point of the map, give or take. Now, this sounds like, they would just immediately run into enemies, but what this also translates to is that occasionally they will just kind of sort of sit there. In the middle, getting shot at by everything around them. So they are not directly aggressive towards other things in those situations. Additionally, if you switch a unit to AI during their turn, they just lose their turn. It's just a thing in this version. So if you ever heard that come up, that would be why. It's, again, another one of those annoying quirks, because AI was a bit of an afterthought in this version. So we're going to go ahead and end the turn there, and we're going to let them do their thing so that you can see this amazing AI at work. So, as you can see, Archers pretty freaking strong in this one, part of the reason that they got nerfed, and debuffs also pretty freaking strong in this version, however, in a really annoying way. So now we've got 3 units that before most of the team has even had a chance to act are currently stunned. This means that they will lose 50% of their actions. Now imagine this over the course of like hundreds of hours of Palace of the Dead. This is the surface level of the Palace of the Dead experience in PSP. And again, bear in mind this map does not have undead units, so we're going to go ahead and try to explore some of these mechanics as they come up, but in case I forget later, let's go ahead and cover a few cliff notes right away. For one thing, the AI can spawn with equipment that you may not have access to. Usually you would get that equipment by recruiting them. For another thing, the AI loves to focus on curing really minor things. So, for example, they will spend absolutely ages going and curing off stuff with their Xena wines, and they potentially might be carrying an entire stack of 99 of them. So, you want to try and get rid of a lot of those before you even get started, except for units that can use ease, like a Valkyrie. So, they will get very obsessed with dealing with minor things. Additionally, if they have access to Mendeleeves, which all of them do, however, the higher field alchemy users have access to more types of those Mendeleeves, they will get, once again, extremely obsessed with trying to make your party absolutely perfect. They will play very safe. And this isn't just an AI thing. Actually, the melee units may typically be a bit more aggressive, but given that they're out of melee range right now, they will just immediately revert to something else, because they can't get there right now, so they will obsess over something different. So, we have a case where they are essentially going to spend a huge amount of time going and just getting rid of basic debuffs. So again, you want to get rid of those items, but you want to have something like Conserve MP and Ease on a Valkyrie to go get rid of those debuffs when you need to. If you're thinking like, oh wow, I'm just going to put Cashua in there, use Princess's Whim. So Princess's Whim is hilarious because it's also one of those ranked skills in this version, which means that it's got about a 30% chance to remove a single debuff, and slows her down on use, and is unavailable a good bit of the time. This is why the automatic version is freaking amazing. Anyway, so that sucks too. On top of that, if you've played One Vision before, you're thinking like, oh, what about this game's version of Tabula Rasa? Oh no, that only works on the cleric themselves, and more often than not, they'll be dead before they get a chance to actually worry about it. Meanwhile, the archers are over here just still one-shotting things. Don't worry about it. Anyway, kind of carrying on here. They keep getting rid of more debuffs. The funny part is, they will obsess over getting rid of these debuffs. They don't care how expensive the items are that they're going to burn when doing all of this. They'll just keep getting rid of those debuffs. Ozmo, with all of her amazing damage and whatever else, currently has not moved forward. So you're thinking like, oh wow, I'm just going to use my movement items. What are you, stupid? Oh no, they can't use movement items. This is why a lot of people will switch to a team of full Hawkmen, because your big amazing damage dealer will sit here at a distance plinking away with spells that can't penetrate past the high defenses of this version, because of the fact that they can't get around that tiny little corner there, because their movement items require activation before they can actually go. So yeah, wow, what a complete downgrade Reborn was. Anyway, moving on. So from here, we can go ahead and talk about things like summons, which I don't think that character has access to, but when it comes to things like summons, most of the time they do 1 damage, unless you're using something like a shaman, in which case they will typically one-shot something, but they also have a hell of a lot less range. We're talking about half the range that they do in Reborn in this version, meaning more often than not, they will finally see their opportunity to one-shot something and then immediately die. Okay, so this moves on to our next little problem here when it comes to your units coming back to life, because hey, you can carry a stack of 99 Blessing Stones. This is no problem. You just walk away and let the AI do its thing, no problem. They're just going to fart out all those drops all day. What, are you stupid? Oh no, they won't use them. The AI can't revive in this version. They don't know how. So, effectively, if they die, they're just not coming back. Okay, so big brain play. We switch everybody over to the to undead. Got it. Problem solved. We've won it. We've just won Palace of the Dead, you guys. Except for the other thing, that if a unit has any divine access whatsoever, they're also probably going to have exorcism. So they will have. Most casters will have a chance to carry an exorcism staff with them. Many of the clerics, by which I mean every single cleric, that means every blue cleric in Palace of the Dead is guaranteed to have a copy of Exorcism, because they have access to everything for their level bracket, so they will always have it. Pumpkins still have their crystal pumpkins. Any unit that has access to orbs will be able to use those orbs. Basically, your undead get exercised constantly in this version, so somehow the problem gets even worse in that scenario. That they are now instantly dying instead of, dying and bleeding out eventually. Okay, so what the hell is our freaking answer to making an AI team in this version here? So, funnily enough, it's actually the same ungodly boring meta that it was for the PvP videos, if you ever saw them. Actually, one more little thing I forgot to bring up here. Actually, no, I think I did already bring up the fact that sometimes the AI will just sit in the middle of the map and just get shot at. But in the case of making a perfect AI team, effectively what you gotta do is overcome every single one of those weaknesses we talked about. So, they have to be able to just straight up not die, but they still have to be able to do a lot of damage. So we're talking heavy shields, heavy armor, and potentially a one-shot capable weapon. In this case, the Damask Crossbow +1, the most overpowered weapon in this game, bar none. Which might seem a little bit bizarre, but here's the thing. The way that the damage was handled for finishers in this game was that they tried to give them bonuses that would make them useful throughout the entire game. In the case of the damage scaling bonuses, it was effectively taking your weapon's attack, your character's stats, all that kind of suchsery, slapping that together with a damage bonus off the attack itself, and then also would give it a bonus based off of how much damage you were going over 100. Or, sorry, how much TP you had over 100. So the higher your TP bar went, the higher your damage went. Also, thank you, Ozma, for having the highest damage on the team, yet doing ones. Anyway, so as far as all of this went, effectively what it turned into was that the crossbow has Death Wail. So instead of being the final finisher, it's actually only the third finisher that they get in this version, and additionally it was actually given a pretty meaty armor penetration bonus, because it scales off of accuracy, which means that it has a flat bonus that has to be good all game, which means that it's overpowered early game. Which means that it's overpowered basically all the game, because it still has to have the ability to penetrate endgame armor. So basically what we have with Death Whale is a move that nearly one-shot stuff from the start of the game to the finish. You actually had a couple of moves that could do this, actually 3 in total. You had Trinity Pulse that was off of the cudgels, though in that case their weapon attack was typically on the lower end, so it wasn't as oppressive. You had Spiral Scourge off the spear, which was usually really good, but struggled in the mid-game due to them having a weird bubble at that point. And then crossbows, which just basically one-shot stuff throughout the entire game, because apparently somebody's finger slipped, and bows, crossbows, katanas, and daggers, for whatever reason, scale harder than everything else. So that's fun too. Now, part of the reason that this probably happened was a possible mistranslation from the Japanese version, which, for whatever reason, has 10 times higher base stat growths. That again, not misspeaking, 10 times higher. So, this basically meant that it wasn't that big of a deal because they had the vitality to take those hits in that version. Generally speaking, the Japanese version feels a lot more like Reborn does. But the North American version, we got the DLC with the game, which meant that they wanted to rebalance it for the DLC, which meant that they ended up going and making the base stats go up way slower, which meant that there was a much bigger emphasis on armor penetration, which meant a much bigger emphasis on skills, which typically tended to be on the low end in the original version, because the game ended just kind of where the game ended. And more or less you actually had stats potentially up to the 60s and 70s for your bases, rather than like the 40s or 50s in the North American version. So either way, the differences were pretty substantial. Typically we had a bigger focus on grind and skills and things. Granted, you could get through the entire thing with no skills and no grind, and it still was pretty darn fun, but not everyone's a challenge runner, so it is what it is. Anyway, so you're potentially already seeing a lot of these things coming together here, but the thing is, even despite all of this other stuff that I just mentioned, that unit would still get completely annihilated by the different debuffs. They could use stuff like spell wards and whatever else to try and make their odds a little bit better, but something like Spell Strike would completely counteract that. So they basically would have a situation where they had a bunch of undodgeable debuffs that would leave them petrified, charmed, leadened, like basically stun-locked forever, despite having a one-shot kill weapon and taking no damage. They would just slowly die over time. So that sucked too. So how do we get around this? Well, it basically was that Motor Cobra team that I made, wherein effectively you get all female knights. You get them a dress that can make poison go away. You give them shields and leggings and all this other stuff that can make stun and sleep and stone go away. They got to be stop proof from Reaver rings, and basically you're just building entirely for debuff resistance and using phalanx all day, and then just praying that one day they get a finisher to get Death Whale in order to then finally be able to kill something. And then once they get Death Whale, then all well and good. They will still eventually take casualties, and then you got to redo that all over again. This is all, by the way, if you're thinking like, this setup sounds like it would take a while. For the sake of reference, the dress that does the immunity thing there is a rare drop from only New Game Plus versions of Oz. The shield is something relatively easy to get. The leggings are something that you can craft. The helmet and all this other stuff were things that you could craft. But the crossbow is craftable. However, the ring was the Reaver ring. The ring was that item that you had to specifically get up to, it was somewhere like rank 3 to 5 for steel. You get that ring. In order to actually get it, there was a guy that spawned, there was no like exact set rate, but if I were to guess, like 10%-ish of the time in one specific map in the Farampa Wildwood. You have to kill off everything else and then repeatedly try to steal from that guy until eventually you manage to get one, and then you got to do that 12 times. So, okay, unbelievably colossal pain in the ass. So, okay, on top of all this other stuff, you might have noticed that our man over there got hit by Bewitch. So, effectively what Bewitch is that it is a move that is an advanced form of Charm. It can only be removed by a specific upgraded version of the Draught, or Ease. So basically no other versions of Bewitch removal will work. Every turn that it's active, their loyalty drops, up to and including the point that somebody can get permanently stun-locked and bewitched by a team of a gremlin and a fairy and actually defect at the end of the fight. I've seen it happen before. It's freaking insane. But anyway, yeah, again, you saw some weird shit happen in this version. So yeah, their loyalty drops every turn that that Bewitch is active, and you can't get rid of it by normal means. So being hit won't make it go away. The higher the mind of the unit, the longer it actually remains active, and it will just keep on happening over and over and over and over. So the charm shot on the bow was actually a pretty mild thing in this version, even though it's incredibly strong in Reborn. It was baby stuff compared to this, because a unit gets hit by a Bewitch, and yeah, you've just basically lost them for a really potentially long time, because that draught, you can't just buy that at the store. You have to have already had a draught. You have to go get a bunch of advanced materials, you have to go get medicine too, and then you have to manually make every single one of them, one at a time, and there's a chance for failure. So you're spending like half an hour to make one debuff for one item that you may never need, but also might completely change the fight whenever you need it, right? It was maddening. And when it comes to ease, it just basically rolls for a random debuff. There's like a million different rules over what prefers what or whatever else. I've seen it go a lot of different ways, so personally I'm convinced that it just rolls completely for just something at random. So yeah, you need like 3 ease users to make it somewhat consistent. You need to be able to have a. Typically, you want Valkyries handling healing and general logistics in this case. Like, they will buff your units, which is useful. But yeah, as you can see, there's already a lot of weird quirks to this particular situation. You're potentially relying on one-shot units. If anything happens to those one-shot units, everybody else might simply not have the actual means to do anything. Ozma is still up there on that damn cliff, just doing absolutely nothing. If and when you actually do get a unit that's capable of exercising, you'll have a situation where they actually, more than likely, unless they're using the Erasean, more likely than not, they actually will not use their exorcism, because they see a unit with basically like a tiny bit of damage or a single debuff or something, and they will prioritize that over exercising that, extremely freaking deadly dragon that was just coming back. So yeah, needless to say, it was kind of insane here. So effectively what you were getting was a situation where an optimal team here would, in theory, be, like if you were making an AI team anyway, would in theory be a bunch of longbows that can just sweep the entire map. But the funny part is, even if they do successfully pull that off without getting, annihilated by debuffs or whatever else, because archers get really bad access to a lot of the anti-debuff gear, even if they do pull it off, effectively what you're creating is another situation where you are now getting nothing for doing all of this. In fact, the AI accidentally just pulled off one of the maneuvers that I recommend when going and setting up something like this, which is essentially creating a team that is instead going to use a lot of petrification. Because if you petrify a unit on a poison tile, they will continuously take pretty solid damage in this version. Because the moss poison and the regular poison, while a petrified unit cannot be normally poisoned, the moss poison still gets them all the same. So, effectively, one of the more effective ways to actually deal with this stuff safely is to mass petrify a bunch of units and just have them sit on the poison tiles. And typically this can be accomplished with things like Petra darts. So stuff like the optimal, technically, quote-unquote optimal version of the AI team in this version might be something like a 1HK Steel Stance and Petra Dart Ninja that essentially is going for those petrifications and then attempting to finish everything off with their overpowered one-handed katana finishers. So something like that could theoretically work as long as they keep their TP up. But as soon as they run out of TP, they're potentially a sitting duck. Again, another reason that they're really useful in the hands of the players and not everybody else. Now, the reason that the longbow strategy doesn't necessarily work is that they might potentially be shooting stuff straight off of cliffs, at which point you're obviously not getting their loot. On top of another thing, if they go and they kill a squishy unit in the middle of a pile of other units, the AI will simply walk over those bags, and they will get them. Which means that that loot is now deleted. You can't steal them back like you can in Reborn. Additionally, this is assuming that they drop anything in the first place. See, after an entire run of Palace of the Dead, you'd be lucky to get like 1 to 4 of what you would consider a relic. The drop rates of everything are so abysmally low in this version that, again, you'd be lucky to see any result coming from going down there. Like this particular version, when this particular save file rather, when I went through Palace of the Dead the first time, all I got was a pair of shoes. One pair of earth boots. That's it. All the way through Palace of the Dead. One pair of fucking shoes. Because everyone's got chances to drop junk on junk on junk. And the higher your level goes, the better your odds of potentially getting some of those pieces of equipment get. But still, obviously, there's other problems. Now, on top of all of this, we haven't even talked about the cliff drop problem, because, again, they can't use movement items, so you're relying on steadfast, which means one of your 10 skill slots, many of which are basically determining how well somebody's able to even survive in this version, are now dedicated to steadfast. So that's another thing. On top of this other stuff, again, since the AI refuses to exercise things most of the time, and you're only going to have one copy of the Erasean, more often than not, they just simply won't exercise things unless you specifically make a unit that has not trained in any other magic type except for exorcism. And that's like the only thing that they do. You can specifically tailor a unit. You just go to the shop, you buy a cleric, you only teach them exorcism 1 and 2, and then potentially just give them a shield, whatever armor they potentially can, and pray for the best. You also had the option of, if you've ever heard Holy Water praised for the PSP version, you had the Princess, who you could load up with heavy armor and send in Holy Water, which basically would just leave them, in a bit of a different state, but because it used TP instead of MP, it still would be a hell of a lot more likely to actually do something if you made them into AI. So she is potentially the best option for an actual AI unit in Palace of the Dead. So anyway, so this is just kind of like a basic gloss over of all of this stuff. I mean, we haven't even gotten over the sheer amount of hoops you have to go through to go get a lot of the debuff resistant equipment and stuff like that. We don't even know what was in that bag. It's just gone now. We never had a chance to even check what was in it. A lot of our casters have been doing absolutely nothing. We'd be lucky if... I don't know how many units have exorcisms on this team, but again, that staff is going to be just about our only option for getting an exorcism going. We'll see if it happens, but again, most of the time they will generally prefer to do literally anything else. They have some higher priority once they are seemingly lower on their count. So you may potentially see them exercising stuff on their final round, but more often than not, they're just going to go do something else. Again, they seem to have a pretty low priority value for it. Needless to say, this takes a while. Like, if you think Palace of the Dead is slow and reborn, oh boy, you have not seen the PSP version. Like, the only reason that I ever enjoyed Palace of the Dead in any run of this particular version of the game was actually in the level 1 run, of all things. Simply put, because at that point, basically everything had been killed for poison for so long that it didn't feel like that much of a slog anymore, and I was only going in there for 2 specific pieces of equipment because the cursed equipment had no level requirement. We mentioned earlier how levels determine what equipment you can use in this version. By the way, you gotta love the mend leaves. I mean, the AI has a function to shield bash undead off of cliffs to exercise them, but he prioritized healing that 10 health. Good job, buddy. We're proud of you. By the way, they can't actually win this map more than likely. What's actually probably going to end up happening is several of them will end up getting stuck. The AI will keep reviving over and over. So they'll get to this side. They're going to completely forget that guy on the right. Even if they had a cleric, it's unlikely that they would have enough range to actually exercise him. He'll eventually come back, and then these guys will eventually come back, and so on and so forth. On the player side, you typically will carry a stack of scrolls for this reason. But on the AI side, you need to be using a cleric, or you need to have a princess with holy water, or potentially a necromancer with banish, which technically I think, come to think of it, let's go ahead and see. I think I actually have that on this team. Let's go ahead and retreat and redo this so that we get to see how the banish does by comparison. There's a decent chance the guy's just going to die before he does anything, But we might as well replace Iria, because she hasn't done a damn thing this entire time. So let's go ahead and replace her. Thank you, Shaman, for doing so much. We appreciate your service. Please just fuck off. Anyway, oh yeah, he's at 15. He probably doesn't even have Banish yet, does he? Oh, he does have Banish. Okay, good, 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 good. He's got some stuff. But he gets worse stuff because he's a lower level, which means that he gets less protection, which means he gets basically targeted by everything, which is awesome. You love to see, you just love to see that. Let's go ahead and what do we want to do here? Yeah, by the way, Grease String is going to have identical stats to your basic war rings from the very start, or your war and defense rings, but you actually have to physically activate it in order to get Water Walk. Yeah! It's so useful. Okay, so I got Earth Shoes and I got that. Okay, slight correction. We got the Earth Shoes. This was actually post Palace of the Dead. We just... How the hell didn't I get Secrets of the Master then? Shoot, well, I forget. Anyway, don't know what happened, but one way or another, we've got our Animate Dead, we've got our Condemn. Alright, good stuff. Do I have any Undead on this team yet? No, I think I was about to make it around this time. I don't know. Whatever, let's go ahead and throw this out there. But hopefully you're starting to get a sense for what's going on there. Oh, and by the way, as far as Banish goes, I forgot to mention, while a Necromancer with Banish seems like it would be the better way to go about things, here's the hilarious part. You actually had two better potential options for that whole thing aside from Exorcism. You're thinking like Banish and Draconics, right? Like, oh, that's so cool. They're gonna finally get a chance to shine. Man, they look so good in this version. You know, they're gonna be exactly tailor fit for this situation. You know what the funny part is? More often than not, you actually can't use their spells whatsoever. Because, you know, they need frickin' eyeballs to go cast their spells. So if you run out of eyeballs, you can't cast the spell whatsoever. You need some pieces of shoulders to make zombies. You need bloodied ventricles, which I constantly misread as bloody testicles for curse. You have to spend more shoulder parts to get life force, brain rot, and stuff like that. Again, take more frickin' eyeballs. So, yeah. After a little while, you literally only have a limited number of casts that you can do this stuff. And the only places that you can actually get a lot of these items are in Palace of the Dead. So you specifically have to go to the shops here, but they only come up every 25 floors or so. But here's the thing. More often than not, you'll actually end up burning out of those things before you get to the next shop, so you still probably want to bring a cleric. Actually, you're better off, in most cases, using the scrolls instead, because you can buy more scrolls than you can actually cast that spell. I might be saying, wait a minute, but that says 99 dry ice stems. You know, that math doesn't add up. I mean, you would assume that the AI would cast something else in the meantime, right? Because getting a Necromancer in this version is an entire adventure all its own. That is to say, a functional Necromancer. God, that's a whole other story. Anyway, so the funny part is, and I love how he's just going to have no aggression towards getting that unit banished whatsoever. The funny thing is that we then get to potentially the other option you might be thinking of, Draconics. We're going to go use all that Draconic stuff. It's going to do all these cool abilities, and you know we're gonna go ahead and see how they're going to cast all these crazy starfalls and things, and it's going to like kill stuff and exercise it at the same time. Yeah. So about that. Okay. So do I have any Draconics in this one? No, they were all on Rudlum. Okay. So the thing with Draconics in this version is that they require gemstones. So the Dragon Gems, all Draconic magic, is somehow even worse than Necromancies in this regard. Because instead of having a bunch of different piles of reagents to use, you know, like it's Ultima or something, instead you got a pile of just Dragon Gems. You can only ever buy 99 of them, which means that you can never cast more than 50 spells before you have to go visit the store again. How often are you casting your spells? Probably more than 50 over the course of a few fights, right? So, yeah, that's certainly a thing. So you're basically running out of reagents, meaning on the player side, normally somebody would just buy a bunch of Starfall scrolls or something, right? Meanwhile, on the AI end, they don't know how to do that. So, okay, optionally, you know, let's go the orb approach. How do we handle orbs? Okay, so you can actually make orbs at the store. Ooh, that's sounding pretty sexy. And as opposed to Reborn, the actual Crystallos ore, you can make that out of basic ore. Oh my god, infinite orbs. It's crazy. So you want to know the funny part? Yeah, technically, you can make those orbs. But for every one of those orbs, you know how they take like 3 of those crystal ores to make? So you gotta make each of those 3 individually. But then to make each of those 3 individually, you got to use some boulder, and you got to use some crystal. To make some crystal, you got to use some other boulder. To make that boulder, you got to use the other boulder. To then go each of those, you have to go and use those inferior ores on each of those multiple times. Do you have any freaking idea how long that takes? Only for it to have a 60% chance to actually succeed? Yeah, exactly. It is exactly as fucked as it sounds. So yeah, you can spend like 4 hours trying to get a fight done that way. And bear in mind, sometimes you'll use them on a unit, and due to stats shenanigans, they just do like frickin' no damage with those things. The other funny thing is they actually changed one of these rules, well actually several of these rules for Reborn. It's like in Reborn, if a Starfall hits, if a Heaven Judge hits, if an Orb hits, that's just instant kill, right? It's just deleted on hit. So they actually have 3 separate rules for whatever fucking reason in this version. Heaven's Judge will instantly kill and vaporize the unit, right? So it'll hit them. If it kills, they're just gone. Fantastic. It's the one that you're used to. However, if Starfall hits, it'll just knock them out. If they're already knocked out, it'll exercise them, and the orb is kind of like that, but also sometimes not for reasons I can't quite explain. So that's a thing too. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, what I mean to say is that the orb can miss. So, you know, that's, yeah. So you can miss an undead unit with your exorcisms, which technically you can do in all versions. It's just way more noticeable here. So thankfully, the Necromancer actually seems to be doing his job. Thank frickin' goodness. I mean, granted, we're like half an hour into this thing and we've barely made it past 2 maps, but hey, they're trying. So yeah. Needless to say, it's not that this was impossible. There were certainly ways. But, man, oh man. If you ever see me get really pissed off at people that say that, like, no, the AI was so much smarter back in the PSP version, you guys. It had so many better features. God, they nerfed it. No, they frickin' didn't. This stuff was, like, frickin' miserable. So, like, those of us that wanted to stick by and stick with it, we had a good time because we appreciated it despite the jank. But to say that there absolutely was no jank here is like, just like, fucking no. Not a chance. But yeah. And this actually, again, carries to the debuffs here, because you're starting to see some of it. Some of it here with the debuffs. This is pretty early. And we're still regularly seeing units getting petrified, shackled, stopped, and whatever else. Now, imagine those maps where you've got ghosts spawning in by the dozen, right? You've just got a ton of ghosts on the other side. All those debuffs cost practically nothing. They go forward, Petrifog, Balmy Breeze, you get your Shackles, you get your Sleeps, you get your Petrifications, you get your Bewitches. And just basically in the blink of an eye, your party that was completely competent and everything else before is now just gone. Like, completely wiped by debuffs, because they all came with Spell Strike. An ability that, again, most players didn't actually kind of appreciate at the time, and still players that go back to it now don't necessarily appreciate, in terms of just how effective it is for making those debuffs land. So, unless you are immune to a debuff, it will hit you, because they will just keep firing it over and over, and these fights go on a while, right? So, yeah, it will just keep coming, and then you get those situations where you get spell slipped, and that's the unit that was doing an exorcism, and now suddenly their exorcism misses, and then that snowballs even harder, and then that snowballs even harder, and all these debuffs keep landing and landing and landing, and it just keeps snowballing harder and harder and harder. This whole situation right now, they're doing okay, but right now they are 1 archer shot away from that Necromancer being history, because he's got really low defenses, and he's got no options to go help with that. Again, many of these maps come with archers. This one has 1 crossbow guy that's sitting over there not doing very much. In most other situations, they will have longbows coming in, they will have fairies coming in, they will have all these other things coming in. If he is silenced, this team is pretty well fucked. If he's bewitched, they may potentially have another problem. If he's shot more than likely with a single tremendous shot, he is toast, and the AI does not know how to revive him. So, so yeah, and if you're thinking like, oh, make your necromancer undead, well, I guess the necromancers technically can, but still, it doesn't necessarily help. Actually, no, I don't think they can become undead in this version. I think they could in Reborn, but not this one. I'm pretty certain that's the case, but honestly, just can't be bothered to go check right now. It doesn't really change anything because the same old thing as before. They probably would get exercised before they got up because most maps will have some way to go and exercise them or whatever else, or the fight will simply be over before they get back on their feet. So it's not exactly a good fix to the situation either. In fact, it's a puzzle that, I mean, it's a fun puzzle for your own time, but it's one of those things that's very patience testing in the meantime, you know? So hopefully this gives a general idea of the difficulties that came with trying to make an AI team in this version, and why many of us long-timers absolutely love the hell out of Reborn for this reason. The fact that so many of these little subtle changes made it a lot more fun. Just made it a lot more pleasant to go through, to play, to actually experience over and over. It's the only version I've ever played where it's like, oh, Palace of the Dead, I kind of want to do that now. That I actually want to go through and experience it again to see what kind of drops we're getting, because you actually get drops basically every map, instead of being something that you maybe get once every 20 maps or so. Like, sure, if you knew where the item was, you can sit there and grind and cherry it over and over and over to get that bag, only to keep getting a card, only to keep getting the wrong item because they keep wanting to go drop some Xenowine or something instead. And again, it's like, it's one of those things that sounds like it would make it deeper, but it made it feel like there was nothing down here. Like this was a hellhole filled with absolutely zero interesting stuff to find until you got to the very end. And to a certain extent, I respect it because it created an almost roguelike feeling. Like, one of my favorite games ever is Sword of the Stars, The Pit, and it has a very similar feeling of just like your actual good items, your rare items and things like that are very, 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 very few and far between, so it gives it that much more of a special quality once you finally get that item. But when that item is basically a little bit of extra defense and you can use your shoes to go cast Fall Strike on something now, like, it's not exactly the big game changer that you're kind of hoping it would be, you know? I mean, there are certainly some exceptions. Like maybe you'll find a cursed weapon and actually understand how to use it. A basic cursed weapon using just about any one of your units, if they're not maxed out, would likely be actually a complete piece of trash in this version. It's basically better in every other version for a bunch of different reasons. Anyway. Actually, I haven't even gotten to the fact that you can only get liches down here. That you can't technically hire them if you find one in the wild. They're less common, though in order to actually turn a unit into a lich that you already have trained up to be a caster of some description, have all their ranks up and whatever else, you have to specifically go to a floor somewhere like 50 or 60-ish, find a Ring of the Dead, which is a still unique item in Reborn for some reason. Anyway, so you get a Ring of the Dead, then you have to go back, then you have to go back to floor, I think, 25 or so. 13, 25, 27, I don't know, somewhere in that ballpark. Somewhere between 15 and 30. Specifically the map where you fight Georges, and then in that particular situation, you have to then go use the ring. Actually, no, not the Georges fight. Georges is the only place you can use a Book of the Dead. It's the other one, where you fight Beelzebooth for the first time, the kind of like swamp with a square in it. That is the only map in the entire game where you're allowed to go create a lich for whatever fucking reason. More than likely, it was just a weird implementation because the game didn't originally launch with the Lich, or the Angel Knight, which, they just kind of came as free DLC later, and so I guess they just wanted to limit the amount of testing that was actually required, so in that particular case, they just ended up going and, putting those ones there. But, like, you can kind of see why it was a bit of a pain in the neck, you know? So, yeah, you more than likely didn't have Lich, you more than likely didn't have Angels. Angels would have been the other thing that could potentially exercise, though, if I recall correctly, there was a pretty decent chance that their songs didn't even function for the AI, so who even frickin' knows. Though the Undead were a little bit easier to deal with in this one because the Balder bonus was really pronounced. So like the ninja with the Balder bow that I got on the team, we're going to go ahead and throw out for the next fight just to see the difference. Are we even doing the next fight? It's going to take us forever to get there. How much caring is involved there? If this coffee cup was at least a quarter full, that caring would vastly improve. But yeah, voice is starting to give out here. So hopefully you get the general idea here over why this one was so much of a pain to actually go build an AI for, why this Palace of the Dead experience was considered absolutely frickin' miserable. As you can see, these little dinky hits that they're doing pretty much constantly. When you're in Reborn, you have access to your super effective finishers, your super effective, attacks and what have you, and you can make those big dramatic pushes that feel like an amazing turnaround and whatnot. Like yeah, we lost access to frickin' meme moves like Quench over there, which has a something like 10% chance to remove poison. But still, like those big turnaround moves felt really good for going and punching through situations like this. In this one, your method of accomplishing the same thing was to use a damage scaling finisher and use max TP up, and then you just kind of wait until your TP bar is high enough or hit stuff enough that you get that TP bar maxed out. At which point you go ahead and you hit something and it hits it a bit harder, and whoop-de-doo, you just spend like 6 turns doing damage to a thing instead of just using a super effective attack. So yeah. So I figured this is a way nicer way to go about it than simply going and, yelling at Steam reviews while reading them, because most of the time it's like, hey, here's what I'm saying, not just showing you kind of thing. Instead we get this. So yeah. Additionally, I should probably point out, as far as those ranks and things that they're getting, if your ranks aren't high enough, if you don't have spellcraft, your spells will more than likely just do 1 damage past about chapter 3 or so, that's also a fun little thing to bear in mind. Plus, the AI will gladly take a lesser effective attack now, rather than waiting for a higher effectiveness one to come up. So if you're wondering why the AI constantly has access to stuff like Clarify, or to Clarity, or Efficacy, and things like that, it's because they probably would just constantly attempt to use nothing but False Strike 24/7 if you did it any other way. So, like, in a lot of cases, their actual builds are basically held together by duct tape, so there's that. Anyway, I gotta head out. Y'all have yourselves a good one. Please don't try Palace of the Dead back in PSP. If y'all are interested, if there's enough interest in seeing this little series continue, I am interested, once my voice stops hurting, to go back and do Pirate's Graveyard as well as San Bronza, because those are also entirely different adventures, though since we don't have to cover SNES, it actually would be a little bit faster in that situation, since it basically doesn't exist in either one of those. Or neither one of those exist in the previous example. Also, Cherry Ronde, interestingly enough, got switched over to an AoE in Reborn. Like, that was just one of those little quiet changes that never comes up. But Cherry Ronde used to just be a single target, just smack that dude kind of move. Anyway, I gotta head out. Actually, wait a minute. Are they about to go actually win the fight? Or are they just gonna keep trying to poison the zombie? Or are they actually gonna do it? Can you get it done? Can you finish off that wizard? It depends on if Canopus' turn is coming up. Oh, nope. Hold on, they're doing 1 damage again. Do it! Yeah! 1 damage! My god. How does he do it? How does he possibly put up such a fight? I want to at least show that Boulder Bow thing. Okay. He is taking that shot. He is doing it. He rolled it high. Good. Fantastic. We basically got nothing for this particular map, but technically it's 1. Again, took us about 45 freaking minutes, but hey, whatever. We got it done. Also, you get almost no experience down here, so that kind of continues on to other versions. Okay. So, let's go ahead and replace... let's go ahead and replace Denim with our dude over here. Here, actually, let's go ahead and show the Dragon Gem situation real quick. So yeah, Draconic spells were weird, that you had 1 or 2 Worm Gems. Occasionally, I think it went up to like 4 or 8 or something for the Tier 2 Draconics. The damage ones took a decent bit more. But yeah, you basically burned out of Worm Gems before you got to the end of most fights, and then you had to go back to Palace of the Dead's shops in order to get more, which meant that you had to grind your way to go be able to get more spells to grind more. Yeah. Additionally, they actually couldn't use a lot of these buffs and debuffs. They actually could in the Japanese version, but they typically had a tendency to burn through their entire stack of Worm Gems, buffing people that didn't need buffing, like going and attempting to use frickin' Healcraft on a ninja or something, over and over and over, and yeah, they removed that stuff for a reason, so there's that. Okay. So let's go ahead and set its AI real quick. God, my throat hurts. And, yeah, let's get to this thing. Yeah, they get their first proper encounter with a mixed team here. Let's go ahead and switch out to this ninja here real quick. Get our interrupt going. And for the sake of showing what they are, here is ninja. They got Balder Bow, Balder Shield. They, magic-wise, their spells basically do nothing. Unless it's the AI. The AI can just show up and one-shot you. But yeah, the spells kind of suck in this version. And yeah, so we'll just go ahead and let her do her thing. If you're wondering why I'm not using Envenom, despite it being like objectively one of the most overpowered abilities in Reborn, that's because you gotta spend money to use it in this version. It is no longer free. You have to go use, I think it's bearded frog wax or something like that to actually cast the thing. And as you can see here, Balder Bow, it just basically deleting undead units as you do. Everybody's just going to go into position here. This is going to be one of the easier ones for the AI to handle, so they're going to look really darn good here. I guess it's a far better way for this particular section to end. They're going to look like they're just going to kick so much ass until they get to the fights that have a tiny ledge, and then they can't possibly get by it. Anyway, so we've got a unit that's about to go down, and despite the fact that we've got revival items in our inventory, they will never use them. Even if you have a cleric with a resurrection, they will never use them. Animate dead, they will never use it. Something like sacrifice, they will not use. There is no ability that will cause them to go revive somebody back up off the ground. They will occasionally use animate dead, though their priority isn't particularly high on it. And yeah, even if they have an item that gives you a free resurrection, they generally will. Well, I say generally. I've never. They will not use it. Long story short. Additionally, things like parry and deflect, like I've seen some folks complain about parry odds in Reborn being too high. They're freaking adorable. But in this particular case, we get wonderful things like units coming in with evade, as well as more than likely higher ranks than you're ever going to achieve of parry or deflect. Just gladly shrugging off attacks. They just get those ranks for free. It's fine, don't worry about it. You sure don't. So yeah, it would take you possibly 10 plus hours to get those ranks, but you're probably not going to do it, and they just get to say that they have them, so that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, and in fact, actually the casters work in many ways kind of like the archers do in Reborn, wherein there's certain targets that they're effective at a baseline level, and then over time their higher end spells can be more of a threat to everything else. They typically will be more of a threat if a unit is hit with fear, though that honestly is far less likely to happen in this version because Lament of the Dead has 30% hit odds by default. Anyway, so yeah, basically they're, a lot of times unless you get them their high ranks and spellcraft and things like that, they typically will be just kind of bouncing off, but that's okay, the archers got it covered by just one-shotting everything, so... so there's that. This game's, like, this version's balance is... like, it's almost a proud level of fucked, you know? Like, everything just makes so little sense that it just doesn't even care. Anyway, by the way, it also just became unwinnable because there's that one longbow shot I was talking about, and nothing can go get that guy back up on his feet. The rest of these units, more than likely, will not be able to handle the constantly resurrecting units here, but we'll see. Maybe. Or they'll get hit by the kiss moves from the gremlins. Who knows? But anyway, I gotta stop chattering about this for right now before my dang throat catches fire, so y'all have yourselves a good one, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.